All right, guys, welcome back to Overcome Babylon. This is Emergency Live. There have been reports just in the past couple of days that hundreds of thousands of Israeli settlers are actually fleeing from the north because of the ongoing escalation with Hezbollah and the nonstop rocket attacks, just random incidents. Really terrifying, right? I mean, think about constantly being under the threat of bombing. And so there have been so many people fleeing, and we need to talk about this. It's actually really important from the prophecy lens of what's about to happen next. But this just came in 2 days ago from Lebanese media outlet Al Manar. 75% of Israelis displaced from the north started new life elsewhere away from Hezbollah nightmare, and this is according to mainstream Israeli media. Again, this just came in a couple days ago, guys. I really need to cover this because this is what's going on, okay? The dwellers, let's see, let me just read a little bit of this. We're looking at about 47 northern Zionist settlements, according to this article, that's what they're saying, have started to rehearse after every missile fire from Hezbollah. The north is breaking down. Okay, basically, we're looking at the fact that all of the Israeli media outlets, whether it's Channel 13, they're starting to admit, even in mainstream news, yeah, anywhere from 80,000 to 250,000, 250,000 settlers just in the north are being displaced. They're evacuating, but really they're settling. They're leaving the country and they're actually going to different places. They're fleeing Israel. And again, this is so huge because of the narratives that are pushed by, all those mega churches and all the establishment religions that have to do with Israel and the regathering and these sorts of things. We're going to talk about that today. We're going to talk about a few other things as well, because there's something going on in Haifa that we need to talk about as far as what Iran is planning on doing and how this is going to really turn ugly in a hurry. And there's news outlets themselves. It's not just me saying this anymore. They're saying that the situation is spiraling out of control, guys. So welcome back to Overcome Babylon. I'm your brother Abraham. Again, this is just an emergency live. Normally, you guys know I go live Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Rumble and X, sometimes YouTube. But let's take a look at what's going on here, okay, with a more finer lens. What you should know is that even according to the Times of Israel, ever since the October 7th surprise, even back in October, this article is from October 22nd, 2023, about 200,000 Israelis had been internally displaced already inside of Israel, internally displaced with the ongoing tensions just with Hamas. Of course, Hezbollah started getting involved early as well, but there are already, 200,000 people just displaced. But as time went on, right, this article is from January 11th of this year. Reuters is saying, yeah, the northern border is causing people to evacuate. This one's saying over 96,000 Israelis have been displaced from the northern border area. And of course, the Lebanese publication we just looked at, Al Manar, is going to have a little bit more of a bias and maybe exaggerate a little bit more. And they said, yeah, it's upwards of 250,000, according to unofficial reports. But even mainstream Israeli media is saying it's 80,000. So, but this article is saying 96,000. And they're, again, it's not that they're just leaving the north and internally being displaced. They're actually looking for a new life somewhere else. The New York Times just posted this article. I believe this is from, is it from the 4th of January? Towns empty and farms languish as war stalks Israeli-Lebanese border. More than 150,000 people have been driven from their homes on both sides of the frontier as Israeli forces clash with Hezbollah militants. This one's saying 150,000. So you can kind of get a range, right? You can kind of see, okay, there's a lot of movement right now in northern Israel. And again, when we're talking about this topic, you have to remember this, okay? When we're talking about Israelis, we're talking about people fleeing, leaving their homes, people that they're forced to join the IDF. We're talking about volunteer military service at 16 years old to 18 years old, minimum 2 years. Mandatory military service. They're military minded. They're at least trained, right? We're not talking about Americans where it's, a voluntary military. We're not talking about other Western countries. We're talking about a population, a people group in Israel, this state of Israel, that are more military minded And if they're fleeing, it's because they're seeing something coming. Are they not? They're more hardened than your average population. They're trained in the basically the art and psychology of warfare at a very young age. And what I'm going to shed some light on today is the fact that I can tell you kind of why this is really starting to heat up, with literally 250,000 people fleeing the north. Again, when you look at the population of Israel, the 2024 estimate is saying that there's about 9.8 million people in Israel. If you do the math, 2.5%. If we say, the upwards estimate, which is probably closer to what is accurate, 250,000, 250,000 people have fled the north. If that number is accurate, which again, it could be a little bit more, it could be right around there, it could be maybe just a little bit less. I think it's up there, right? 250,000 people leaving the north. That's about 2.5% of the population of the entire nation of Israel are in panic mode right now. Okay? And as your brother, I need to be warning, I need to be the watchman here and continue to sound the alarm, because I see danger coming. And it's not just fear mongering, it's not just whatever. It's for us to really pay attention to some very specific prophecies and scriptures that really had been sealed until the end times. And we're going to get some clarity today. My goal is to give a lot of clarity on some really key scriptures. But again, I want to go back to the narrative, right? Whether I don't know what your background might be, but I was a Christian when I was 15 years old. I called upon the name of Jesus. I said yes to Jesus, and my life changed. I was never the same person. And then throughout life, we all have our ups and downs. We have our highs and lows. We have the desert. We have the abundance of the Garden of Eden in our relationship with God. There's good times, there's bad times. We walk away from him when we're not seeking him. For me, it was an up and down kind of a thing. But I remember when I was always going to churches, I was trying, right? I went to a Bible college, 4-year college, and I was trying to seek God. I remember every pastor, like all of them, unanimously agreeing that the 1948 state of Israel is the Israel of end times. It is the prophesied regathering of Israel. The Jews are Israel. There's nothing else besides Jews. Jews are Israel. No one ever talks about the 10 tribes of the lost tribes of Israel. Ephraim, house of Isaac, house of Jacob. The different names in the scriptures are given to these 10 tribes in the north. But again, we're all taught in mainstream theology, seminaries, institutions that 1948 Israel is the fulfillment of prophecy. Well, let's put that to the test with what's going on right now. Because here's what I discovered recently, and I know you've probably maybe discovered this on your own as well. Jeremiah 29 says this in verse 10. Thus says Yehovah, Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh, Yehovah, after 70 years are completed at Babylon, I will visit you and perform my good word toward you and cause you to return to this land. And then, of course, there's that really popular verse. I really love this one. For I know the thoughts that I think toward you, says Yehovah, thoughts of peace and not of evil, to give you a future and a hope. But what everybody says is, yes, the 70 years of Babylon were completed. Bam, Nehemiah, Ezra, the temple's rebuilt. The Jews, the southern kingdom called Judah, of all the 12 tribes, there's Judah, returned after Babylonian captivity under Nebuchadnezzar. They were captives for 70 years. They returned to the land of Israel in those days, and they stayed there until the time of Christ, until the time of Jesus. We know these things. This is very straightforward, right? But here's what most people fail to understand is that they said, hey, Pilate, no. We want to crucify him. He's a false prophet. That guy Jesus, that guy Yeshua, his blood be on us and on our children. And so Pilate, this is Matthew 27, verse 26. Pilate released Barabbas to them, and when he had scourged Jesus, he delivered him to be crucified. So basically, the Jews of Yeshua's day, right there in the first century, they're like, hey, let us go ahead and be cursed. We want to do away with this false teacher, false prophet, and they rejected him. Well, what happens shortly after, right? About 40 years later, there's the siege of Jerusalem. This is from the Encyclopedia Britannica. Siege of Jerusalem. During this siege, the Roman military blockade of Jerusalem happened during the first Jewish revolt. Again, this is AD 70. The fall of the city marked the effective conclusion of a 4-year campaign against the Jewish insurgency in Judea. The Romans destroyed much of the city, including the Second Temple. The majority of information on the siege comes from copious notes of the Jewish historian Josephus, of course. We get a lot of good stuff from Josephus as far as historical record. So they were prophesied to return by Jeremiah after 70 years of captivity. They come back. They're okay for a while. But they start falling back into the Babylonian Talmud, and they stray away from God. The Messiah shows up. They crucify him. They're cursed for that. Not shortly after that, like very soon after that, they are cursed. And here's the thing, and this is what really blew my mind recently. There's no. I challenge you. Okay. Find a place in the Bible. And I recently challenged somebody recently, and they couldn't do it. And I've brought this up to a few people. Find a place in the Bible that says, after the 70 AD destruction of Jerusalem and the temple by the Romans, show me a place in the Bible that talks about Israel being regathered back into the land, kind of like a 1948 Israel that we've known in recent history, created by the UN, that Resolution 181. Is there a prophesied return of just Judah? Just Judah, just two tribes, just the south. Is there a prophesied return after 70 AD? And what you're going to find is no, there is not. There is not. But what everybody says is what we see now in the land of Israel is the fulfillment of Ezekiel 37. Let's just take a look at it. This is what everybody says. They quote Ezekiel 37:19, and they say, "Thus says Yehovah Elohim, surely I will take the stick of Joseph, which is in the hand of Ephraim, and the tribes of Israel, his companions, and I will join them with it, the stick of Judah, and make them one stick, and they will be one in my hand. And the sticks on which you will write will be in your hand before their eyes. Then say to them, thus says Yehovah Elohim, surely I will take the children of Israel from among the nations wherever they have gone, and I will gather them from every side and bring them back into their own land. And I will make them one nation in the land on the mountains of Israel, and one king shall be over them all. They shall no longer be two nations, nor shall they ever be divided into two kingdoms again." Well, yeah, that kind of sounds like the prophetic regathering, right? Well, except for Ezekiel, you got to look at all of it. Look what it says in verse 23 of Ezekiel 37. "They shall not defile themselves any more with their idols, nor with their detestable things, nor with any of their transgressions, but I will deliver them from all their dwelling places in which they have sinned, and I will cleanse them. They shall be my people, and I will be their God." Okay, already there should be some red flags in your spirit, but we're going to make this really crystal clear, okay? Because Ezekiel 38 then says this. This is, again, people say that this is what 1948 Israel is. This is the fulfillment of Ezekiel 37 and 38. Many people, this is what it says, many people on the mountains of Israel. I'm just going to read part B of this verse, of 38, verse 8. "Many people on the mountains of Israel, which had long been desolate, they were brought out of the nations." And here's the key thing. All of them dwell safely. So again, all these people are supposed to be dwelling safely. Is that what's going on right now? And anybody who's just looking at this without any sort of bias will be able to understand, no, with 75% of Israelis displaced from the north, and it's numbering anywhere from 80,000 to 250,000 people running for their lives, looking to start a life in a different country. Yeah, this is definitely not what Ezekiel 38:8 is saying. And you have a bunch of Christian ministers, YouTubers, bloggers, everybody is saying, oh, Israel is going to be protected and blessed. No military can touch them. No one's going to be able, they're going to dwell safely. Well, it's just not happening, okay? But again, this is the narrative. This is just one blog, one website called JewInTheCity.com. And they're saying, this is the rhetoric, okay? We're living in a very special time period where the Jewish people, this author says, have begun to gather back into our ancient homeland, which is exactly what the prophets foretold, they say. Well, I don't know which prophets they're reading, but let me just show you what Hosea says, okay? Hosea, let's look at Hosea 11:9. "I will not execute the fierceness of my anger. I will not again destroy Ephraim." By the way, that's a reference to those 10 tribes in the north, Ephraim, Israel. "For I am a God and not man, the Holy One in your midst, and I will not come with terror. They shall walk after Yehovah. He will roar like a lion. When he roars, then his sons shall come trembling from the west." And you could say, oh, okay, well, yeah, they came from Hitler's Germany, fleeing Germany. They came from, Europe. They came to dwell in Palestine in 1948, beginning in 1948, right? But here's the key. Got to pay attention to every word, right? They shall come trembling like a bird from Egypt, like a dove from the land of Assyria. Oh, here's that one little line that everybody wants to ignore. And I will let them dwell in their houses, says Yehovah. That's Hosea 11:11. So obviously, when we're reading about hundreds of thousands of people running for their lives, why would God change his mind if this really is the true Israel of the Bible? And these people here lying through their teeth are saying this is exactly what the prophets foretold. Something doesn't add up. It looks like we're being lied to by the mainstream. Of course we are. You guys know where I stand on this, but I just got to show you how ridiculous these things are. That people have been shoving this in our throat, down our throats, saying that the prophets foretold these things. And it's like, yeah, they said they're going to dwell safely multiple times. They're going to dwell in their houses. They're going to dwell safely. And that's not happening. Okay. And the reason it's not happening is because they are condemned. Israel, the modern day state of Israel, by and large, is a secular government. And more importantly, even though they do uphold the Torah as important, but they also uphold other books that are not. But the most important thing is that they are condemned because they rejected God in the flesh. His name is Yeshua. For God did not send his son into the world to condemn the world, but that the world through him might be saved. But he who believes in him is not condemned. But he who does not believe is condemned already, because he has not believed in the name of the only begotten Ben Elohim, Yeshua. And this is the condemnation, that the light has come into the world, and men love darkness rather than light, because their deeds were evil. And when you compare these things to Leviticus 26, the curses of the law of the Torah, well, it looks exactly like what we're seeing now. God says, I will scatter you among the nations and draw out a sword after you. Your land shall be desolate and your cities laid waste. Well, that's exactly what we're seeing now, because again, the people, the nation of 1948 UN created Israel is walking contrary to God. They have not believed in the name of Yeshua. They're walking contrary to him. They are doing whatever is right in their own eyes. And you just cannot, there's no way around this, right? Absolutely no way around this. And you see, we're not the only ones that understand this. Other people get it too. Other people see what's going on in the land. They understand the culture of the land. They understand the pride of the land. They understand, like we do. And even back in the day, in the 40s, before Israel took over Palestine, there were works like this. This is just one work, Jews Against Zionism, the American Council for Judaism, 1942 to 1948. Let me read you an excerpt from this book written by, I forget the author's name, Thomas A. Kolsky. Let me just read you a little excerpt at the very beginning so you understand what kind of was going on here. And this author says, the American Council for Judaism was the only American Jewish organization ever formed for the specific purpose of fighting Zionism and opposing the establishment of a Jewish state in Palestine. In the 1940s, when the Zionists were engaged in a decisive struggle to create a Jewish state, the council stood as their most formidable opponent within the Jewish community. Why do you think that is? Why do you think that is? Because the prophets never made it clear, because it's not actually the case, that anything should be forcibly taken by God's people. And God's people were never commanded to establish a country after 70 AD. Jews understand this. Not all Jews are in favor of the current establishment over there that is bombing Gaza and doing all of these heinous crimes in the name of being a blessed, chosen, regathered people from all the nations. See, not everybody has fallen for this, because anybody who just looks at the Bible objectively and sticks to the Torah and sticks to the prophets and sticks to the Gospels, you'll see it's very clear. This is not right. And so I want to show you a little clip here. There is an Orthodox Jewish rabbi by the name of Haim Sofer. Haim Sofer is somebody who actually had to flee Israel, the current state of Israel,
to see the pain of
because
a Palestinian
he's an
mother
activist, and he spoke out
that
against
lost her
the
most precious
regime and
thing
what was going on
in her
over there
life.
and what has been
And
going
that's
on
the
there for a
children she
while.
lost them
He lives in London,
That's the most
in the
painful
UK right
thing to
now.
see.
And so that's again, his name is Haim Sofer. I want to show you so that's a little clip, but I want to show you this article here. And he says this, his words, not mine. This is from a Turkish publication, AA.com. Israeli officials should be judged and jailed in The Hague for Gaza war crimes. Jewish rabbi. Okay. So not everybody, again, the reason why I'm pointing out this article is because not everybody is brainwashed like the Western religious establishment. Not everybody is tainted by the system. Not everybody has been drunk with the wine of Mystery Babylon. Some even Orthodox Jewish rabbis. In fact, I would say that the Orthodox is the one people group that gets it the most. They see through the smoke and mirrors. They see through the smoke and mirrors. They understand. And what I want to show you is his words here because they're very eye-opening. Okay? Very, very eye-opening from, again, his name is Haim Sofer. This is what he has to say. Okay? And again, the death toll right now in Gaza is approaching 25,000, according to Al Jazeera's latest numbers. But at the time of this article, this is just a few days ago, this is what he says. We're talking about 23,000 men, women, and children, and old people that were killed. Most of these people that were killed are innocent people, and the destruction of Gaza is enormous. It reminds us of the destruction of the German city of Dresden in World War II, he said. And he says that these are war crimes. Okay? These are war crimes. He, again, lives in London, and he actually says this. I grew up with the feeling that this land was stolen from the Palestinians unlawfully because according to the Jewish law, the Jews were expelled from Palestine 2,000 years ago, he said. Okay? Sofer stressed that the Jews can only live as guests among Arab nations or as part of the Palestinian people. The rabbi said he is hopeful of a peaceful end, which could be done by the UN and world powers by peacefully dismantling the state of Israel and giving back the land to the Palestinians. Give them, Palestinian people, reparations for all they have suffered from the Zionists, he said. I'm sure the Jews will be welcome back to live under the Palestinian Muslim jurisdiction. They were going to be welcome to live with them with full religious rights. He stressed that peaceful dismantling is indeed possible, citing the abolishment of the apartheid regime in South Africa. The end of the state of Israel clearly will come because, this is what he says, rebelling against Almighty God will not succeed, he added. And again, he had to flee living in Israel because, again, he's an activist. He would point out the crimes. And I'm going to show you a clip here in a moment. But, the regime there doesn't really like when you call things out. They really don't like when they call things out. Okay, I'm going to show you just a clip from that. Here's another quote from this article I really want to show you. This is another thing that Sofer has to say. Jews will have no problems coexisting with others so long as they stay true to the teachings of their holy book, the Torah, Genesis or Deuteronomy. It's also called the Pentateuch. It's also called the Decalogue, the law, Genesis or Deuteronomy, and don't have any aspirations to take over the land, Palestinian or otherwise, said the rabbi. And see, the reason why I wanted to point this out is because some people just get it, right? Not everybody, I'm just telling you, the Orthodox, by and large, are the biggest group of Jews that really get it. They can look at the Bible and say, we're not supposed to forcibly take anybody's land right now, only until Christ comes, the Messiah, which they rejected, but they still see it correctly. Only when the Messiah comes back should we ever have land and a portion that he gives us, but we're not supposed to actually go and take over other people's land. There are consequences for this, and this is where we're going to get into the prophetical today. Again, thank you guys for joining me live here. And if you're catching the replay, Yeshua bless you and be with you as well, okay? But we're going to get into some really interesting prophetical analysis in a moment. But again, I just want to show you that when you stand up to the regime over there, this is just one Orthodox rabbi getting thrown down. And you can see, it's just a violent place to be, guys. If you want to speak up and speak out against the crimes that are committed, or if you just want to have a voice and be an activist, you will get slapped around. You will get slapped around. Okay. With that being said, it's time for us to take a look at what's going on in the north. Okay. I've told you this before, but Damascus is a hot seat for Iranian and Russian military movement, bases, arms, and so forth. You have Hezbollah in the north of Lebanon there, South Lebanon, North Israel, and you got a lot going on there in this general region. Let's take a look at Haifa for a moment. Again, you know what's interesting about that article from Al-Manar, Lebanon, that I quoted at the very beginning? They're saying up to 250,000 settlers have already fled Israel in the north. The population of Haifa is 282,000. This is one of Israel's most important cities, third largest in Israel. It's obviously a humongous seaport. There's chemical plants here, whether it's ammonia fertilizers for farms. There's also nuclear reactors. There's all kinds of important industrial activity that happens in Haifa, this port city on the northwest corner of Israel right now. And the reason why I'm putting a humongous spotlight on Haifa today is because it's actually one of the key military targets. And see, again, let's go back to the mind of the Israeli settlers there that are fleeing. They understand that, oh my goodness, if all-out war is waged against Hezbollah by the Israeli government, Haifa is a major target. And my goodness, is a Fukushima going to happen over there? Is there going to be a radiological event that is going to desolate the land? There's like I said, there's ammonia fertilizer plants there, chemical plants there. When those explode, those are going to be very, very highly inflammatory. I mean, it's an accident waiting to happen. Okay. But okay, here's the rhetoric, right? Here's the rhetoric coming from, who is this? This is I forget his role in the Israeli government. I believe he's the Secretary of Defense kind of a role. But Israeli Minister Ben Gvir just came out. This is going viral right now on the social waves. He said, we must go to war with Hezbollah on live TV. He was talking, here's this, one of these, just look at her face. We'll take a look at this in a moment. If we do not go quickly start a war against Hezbollah, it will be difficult for the residents of the north to return. And then this person says, the lady was amazed and horrified by the stupidity emanating from him. And you can just see this look on her face, like, what are you doing? We're going to go to war with Hezbollah? Because obviously anybody who has a level head, understands what's going on, knows that Israel is having a very, very, very difficult time with Hamas already. And you have, oh my goodness, you have this rhetoric coming out. This is from almasirah.net, a Yemen publication. Hezbollah warns Israel of strong slap in the face if it wages all-out war on Lebanon. And so the rhetoric is very, very strong. They're not backing down. They're going to deal a decisive defense if Israel goes to war with Hezbollah. This is what's going on, guys. It's not looking pretty at all. Let's take a look at Haifa a little bit more and talk about Fukushima. If you don't know about Fukushima, this is a nuclear accident that happened in Japan in 2011. I know this made a lot of headlines back then. There was an earthquake and a tsunami and a nuclear reactor meltdown in the midst of all that happened at the same time. And it was really catastrophic. Okay. The nuclear Fukushima incident. What's interesting about this Wikipedia article is it says no adverse health effects were found among Fukushima residents or power station workers. Okay. Well, again, that's just a little bit of nonsense there, because anybody who studies these things, let's look at the National Cancer Institute. If you look at accidents at nuclear power plants and cancer risk, you can look at the effects of ionizing radiation. You can look at the effects of what happens during a Fukushima-style event if a nuclear reactor is compromised, if there's a radiation leak, if there's an attack. In this case, we're looking at a potential attack by Hezbollah on one of these nuclear sites in Israel, like Haifa. What happens? Well, ionizing radiation, it's just like in nuclear war. Ionizing radiation is absorbed by the thyroid. Specifically, there's an isotope of iodine. It's I-131 that's released. Let me just read this. Human exposure to I-131 released from nuclear power plant accidents comes mainly from consuming contaminated water, milk, or foods. People may also be exposed by breathing dust particles in the air that are contaminated with I-131. Inside the body, I-131 accumulates in the thyroid gland, which is an organ in the neck. The thyroid gland uses iodine to produce hormones that control how quickly the body uses energy. Because the thyroid does not distinguish the I-131 radioactive isotope from non-radioactive iodine, the thyroid gland will accumulate either form. And as you may have guessed it, 2 + 2 = 4. Exposure to radioactive iodine may increase the risk of thyroid cancer And if your thyroid's messed up, just ask anybody who might have a thyroid condition. A whole lot of things in your body get messed up because your thyroid is responsible for the regulation of your hormones, a ton of endocrine functions. I'm not going to get all geeky on you, but yeah, your body's going to be out of balance. Your gut's going to get messed up, all kinds of health issues. So what's funny, this cracked me up. I was talking to my wife when we were putting together some of the research for this live today. Nuclear power in Israel. They say while Israel operates nuclear research reactors, it has no nuclear power plants. Very fascinating to me that if they say that, fine, whatever. Let's go take a look. I don't know why they don't admit that. I mean, they admit they have reactors. They just say, oh, they're kind of offline. They're just for research. One of those reactors is located right here in Haifa. You can see it in this image in the background. I'm going to go show you a little zoomed in graphic of this. Again, this is a hot military target. This is what it looks like on Google Earth. You kind of look at this industrial area behind the city of Haifa, away from the coast, and you can see that there's those two reactors right there. You have water. It looks like humongous reservoirs of water for cooling. So those very much look like active reactors. In fact, they look like nuclear power plants to me. But hey, what do I know? I'm just an armchair theologian, right? I'm just a guy, just getting the bird's eye view for you guys, relaying some of the information. The main thing is, guys, these places like Haifa, these nuclear reactors, Dimona, everything that I've shown you on this map here with the radioactive symbols, these are targets of interest to bad actors and all of the surrounding enemies from Iran, Syria, Lebanon, Turkey obviously has close ties, Russia. Everybody who's in league knows what they're looking for. But Wikipedia will try to hide from us and try to deflect us and say, no, there's really nothing to see here. Lawfare.org. This is an interesting article. Hezbollah's precision threat to Israel. There's a specific little quote here I want to show you. Where is it? I just had it pulled up and then I scrolled away from it though. But they're saying that, okay, there could be anywhere from 2,000 to 4,000 rockets and missiles per day on an all-out escalation with Hezbollah. That is frightening. That's definitely one reason why you have settlers leaving the north. Hezbollah has been described as the world's most heavily armed non-state actor, in large part due to the tremendous number of long-range weapons it possesses. And there's a lot that can go wrong here once war is declared against Hezbollah, which the defense minister Ben Gvir is saying we have to go full steam ahead. And let me tell you, they are looking for nuclear sites. Let me see. I think that's what it was here. They're looking for those nuclear facilities. Okay, an Iranian outlet published a piece in 2022 outlining Israel's target bank, including various government buildings and nuclear and military facilities. And again, that's how I derived that thumbnail, that image for you guys today, is based off of research just like this. This is from the Jerusalem Post. Iran publishes list of sensitive sites. This is in 2022. So they know what they're looking for. Sensitive sites include the Knesset government buildings, warehouses, facilities, and institutions. Okay, under the guise of reporting on reports by Beirut-based Al Mayadeen, a pan-Arabist satellite news channel, media outlets close to the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps have published a list of sensitive sites that could be targeted in a future war. Well, guys, we're here now. This isn't 2022 anymore. It's 2024, and we're in the hot seat. And again, I've already shown to you what they're looking for, but you're betcha we're going to be looking just like it was in Japan, Fukushima, Japan. You betcha there's going to be those nuclear sites are going to be targeted. It'll have devastating effects for that surrounding region, for that population. It would guarantee a decapitation strike from the Iranian perspective. It just would. And the closer that we get to Iran, Hezbollah making their move, especially Hezbollah. Hezbollah is really what we need to be paying attention to now. Now that we're here, Haifa, this place in the north, this is where we need to be focusing our attention in the short term. Because although I have been warning about Jerusalem, which is still very, very, very valid, very important for us to be paying attention to Jerusalem. What I'm seeing is like the next piece on the chessboard here is Haifa in the north, because the north has already taken some heat. People are already fleeing. The Israeli settlers know that something doesn't feel right. And what I've been warning you about is the nuclear Samson option of Israel. The one option that if they choose to use it is, well, a last resort for a reason, because it would cause devastation, yes, to their enemies, but also irreversible damage to the homeland, because there is going to be harsh retaliation for such an option being used. And what I've mentioned before here on the channel is that, hey, even back in the 1973 Yom Kippur War, one of the aides of that prime minister during that time period, named Dayan, or no, yeah, let me read this properly. There was a government aide that said the defense minister, badly shaken on day 2 of the Yom Kippur War, suggested using the ultimate option, and the prime minister of that time said no. So one of the insiders overheard a conversation between the prime minister and an aide, and he was like, no, we're not going to do it. And so even though Israel rejects the fact that they have nuclear weapons, you can do the math here, the 2 + 2 math. This is from the Times of Israel, by the way, right? This was published in 2013. You can do the math here and understand it's an option on the table. It's called the Samson option. It's a nuclear doctrine that asserts, yeah, we're going to go ahead and fire off our arsenal if we feel threatened and there's just no other way out of the situation. We're going to retaliate with a nuclear retaliation. Now, here's the thing. In those days, this was 2013. This is a 10, 11-year-old article at this point. The foreign minister of Iran, Mohammad Javad Zarif, he claimed that Israel had 200 nuclear warheads at that time. Has there been buildup in the past decade? Most likely. But even in those days, 200 nuclear warheads were in their possession, according to Iranian intelligence. What I'm saying is, watch out. I think this is how this is going to play out, because Isaiah 17 tells us of the burden of Damascus. The burden of Damascus, behold, Damascus will cease from being a city and will be a ruinous heap. Isaiah 17, verse 1. The cities of Aroer are forsaken. They will be for flocks, which lie down, and no one shall make them afraid. The fortress also will cease from Ephraim. Well, who's that? Again, Ephraim is those lost tribes of Israel, that northern house of Israel, that the Jews don't really want to talk about. The mainstream Jews don't want to talk about. The Orthodox know who that is. The kingdom from Damascus and the remnant from Syria, they will be as the glory of the children of Israel, says Yehovah of hosts. Now, here's the key. The next verse. In the day, let me paraphrase it. Isaiah 17:4. In the day that Damascus ceases from being a city, in that day, which it's still a city, it's still the capital of Syria. Okay, it's still there. In that day, it shall come to pass that the glory of Jacob will wane, and the fatness of his flesh is going to grow lean. It goes on to say later that his cities will be absolutely forsaken. But I know what you might be thinking, right? Who is Jacob? God bless you. If you've been here for a little bit, you know where I'm going with this. Jacob is, well, let's read what Genesis 49 verse 1 says. Jacob called his sons and said, gather together that I may tell you what shall befall you in the last days. My friends, we are living in the last days. And so when Jacob gives his blessings on Reuben, on Naphtali, Dan, Gad, Asher, Zebulun, Issachar, all of his sons, those are the last days identities of Ephraim, of those 10 northern tribes, and the southern house of Judah that also was scattered after 70 AD and never came back. They came back in a very small part in the current 1948 Israel, but Judah is scattered. The northern house of Israel is scattered. Both houses have been scattered. This is what the scattering of the north looks like. They went to Galatia, Greece, Iberia, Venetia, Britain, Scotia. And my friends, you guys know that the United States, England, the UK, these are the primary locations of the largest identities of the last days that we are currently living in. And as we look at the destruction of Damascus, which is knocking on our door right now with a lot of tension in the north there of Israel, well, Damascus is not too far, right? Again, when we look at a map here, Israel, you got Israel right there, you have Damascus right there. It's a stone's throw from the northern border of Israel, and that's why there have been a lot of airstrikes. We're going to talk about that in a moment, but you have Iranian, Russian military presence. Let's take a look at this. Let me show you this. You have all of these military movements and territories of Hezbollah. All those yellow buttons you see on the map here, that's all Hezbollah. All these tunnel systems, military presence, territories. And my goodness, they are numerous. That is a lot to deal with there. There is a lot going on in Damascus and Lebanon right there. And I can tell you that if this goes the way that it looks like it will, because you have the rhetoric of high key governmental figures inside of Israel saying we must go to war with Hezbollah in order to restore the north, really all it's going to do is destabilize the north even more. And you got a recipe, the perfect recipe, especially because we know what time it is by God's grace, for the Damascus prophecy of Isaiah 17 to be fulfilled. Because it looks like, again, I've been warning about this, it looks like Israel is going to go after some sort of military targets around Damascus, potentially use nukes. We don't know exactly how this is going to play out yet. All we know is that God said Damascus is going to cease from being a city. And when Israel commits this crime, whatever they're going to do, we don't know. When they wipe out a whole city, just like Gaza, they're going to turn Damascus into Gaza. We know that in that day, something is going to change. There's going to be a paradigm shift, because in that day, then the glory of Jacob, all 12 tribes scattered throughout the known world, especially the United States, the UK, is going to grow lean. They're going to starve. Their flesh is going to grow lean. Their cities are going to be as a forsaken bow. They're going to be forsaken, deserted cities. As soon as Damascus gets something happens over there, Israel takes action against some kind of military targets, we're going to look for the West to lose its glory. This just came in today, guys. January 20th. Boom, boom, boom. This is Fox reported this. Iran blames Israel for strike that killed 4 senior military officials in Syria as Mid-East conflict spirals. Again, that's not my words anymore. I used to tell you this. Hey, guys, this is spiraling out of control. This is getting out of control. Now Fox News is saying, hey, guys, this is spiraling out of control. And again, they're going after different senior members of the IRGC in Syria. This has already been happening. They're striking again. When you look at this map and you can kind of understand what's going on with all these airstrikes that continue to happen. These latest airstrikes were just in the past few hours. I mean, it's like last night, I think it was. But you understand there's a lot of military presence from the BRICS nations, Iran and Russia being the 2 players there, but also the militia groups, tons of different militia groups. I can't even keep up with the militia groups that exist in the region. And let's just take a look at what this says here. The strike destroyed in the western Damascus neighborhood of Mazeh that the IRGC officials had allegedly used as a base of operations. The Syrian army claimed the Israeli Air Force fired the missiles while flying over the disputed Golan Heights region. They're exchanging blows, guys. You tell me, how much longer do we have? Let me check the comments. How much longer do we have until this Damascus prophecy is fulfilled and the West really has their glory beginning to fade? That's what we're reading. Okay, that's what we're seeing. This is where we are. This is the time period we're in. We are in, just like Jacob said, the last days. We're here now. All right, so I'm going to check comments here and if you guys have anything you want to share, anything you want me to cover real quick. But if you missed last night's live, I had a guest on, Jeff Pletcher. He laid out the hidden Hebrew ancestry of the Cherokee Nation, how they were monotheistic, not polytheistic, how they received a specific word from Yahweh, which is very similar to Yehovah. The great God, the great creator, appeared to what we know as the Cherokee nowadays, but their real name is, hopefully I'm saying this right, Ketoa. And it's just a fascinating talk about the Hebrew ancestry of the Cherokee Nation and how they were a nation under God, Yahweh, but they fell away from him. And so the Cherokee prophecy is fascinating because not only was it fulfilled exactly on 1776, but it also has great information for us as we look to the future and the great awakening of America that will be happening very, very soon once people realize what's really going on after it hits the fan and things really get crazy, because unfortunately judgment is necessary for God's people to finally wake up. It's just the way it is. I wish it could be different, but hey, it wasn't until 2020 that yours truly woke up to what is going on, and then shortly thereafter began the Overcome Babylon platform and everything that's going on here. So it's necessary for us to have a little bit of heat so we can be refined, right? So, all right. So first question from Cynthia. Where are we on the biblical timeline? Is it birth pangs? Go into the link of this video. There's in the description down below. There's a link to get Bible Prophecy Secrets for free. You can download it for free. You can order a copy if you want, but BibleProphecyUnlocked.com, link in the description. You can check out the timeline. Yeah, we are in the time of Jacob's trouble almost. We're like knocking on the door of the time of Jacob's trouble. And so, good question. Thank you for asking it because, yeah, we're really close to the end, but we're not guessing. We don't have to guess. We have very specific cyclical information, numerology that God laid for us from Genesis and Leviticus specifically, that we know where we are in the last days. So, yeah, Romans 10:13 says, yep, 2020 was the time that I woke up to. Exactly. 100%. That's what happened with me. This is an interesting comment. I'll just leave it on screen because that's a very plausible outcome. You know, you never know, but that's kind of what it's looking like. Can you yes, indeed. Appreciate that. Tim Gibson says, very good job. Thank you for all you do for us. In Jesus' name, amen. Jesus bless you, brother. Thank you for being here with us. Tony says, Yah will provide and wisen us 100%. Guys, it's all about leaning into him. This is very easy. He said, take my yoke upon you, is what Yeshua said. My yoke is easy. My burden is light. You will find rest for your souls as you pursue the ancient path. There is a peace that surpasses all understanding. It doesn't make sense. You can try to explain it to people, and you'll have a hard time. The way I can explain it to you is the more that you have a surrendered heart, the more free you become. Have a surrendered heart to Yeshua, and you will have the peace that surpasses all understanding. It's a beautiful thing. So that's all my strongest recommendation and encouragement for you guys, and for me, myself, I'm speaking to myself too, is to continue to press into the master and hear his voice, lean on him, listen to him daily. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. All right. Well, thank you guys for being here. This is a little shorter of a live. I wasn't even planning on doing a full hour, so appreciate you guys being here. I know what you're talking about. So Redbone King says, has the restrainer been eliminated? I don't know. That's a very abstract concept that Paul was talking about. I'm not even sure what he meant, but we'll find out later. One thing I learned about prophecy is kind of like the things that aren't super, super, super clear. Just let enough time go by, look back, you'd be like, oh, okay, that's what Paul meant by the restrainer being taken away. Then the man of lawlessness can appear and all that kind of stuff. The restrainer, I don't know, it could be a few different things. I'm just not 100% clear on that right now. So, yeah. All right, guys. Well, thank you for being here. Hopefully this was eye-opening for you. Share it, especially for those that are confused about the identity of God's spiritual Israel, who calls upon the name of Yeshua, calls upon the name of Jesus, versus the 1948 Israel. There's two different Israels on the world stage right now, the spiritual Israel and a secular government that is really leading the world towards World War III at this time. And at this point, it's irreversible. It's just a matter of what do we look for? How do we navigate it? And we're looking for Haifa. We're looking for the north. We're looking for something to happen over there in Damascus, Syria, with those bases, those Iranian bases, those Russian bases down there. And the rhetoric is very strong, and it doesn't look like there's a way out of this. So continue, guys, especially on this Shabbat, day of rest. Shabbat shalom to you guys. Continue to press in to the master. Listen to his voice. He will direct your path and make all things clear. I'm your brother Abraham. God bless you. I'll catch you very soon, Monday. I'm going to have a few guests next week on the podcast. Can't wait. I'll see you then. Appreciate it.
So here I am, broken open, emptied of myself, of my regret. in